Hello.
Hi, Lisu.
Hi, Millie. Come in. Hello, my name is Lisu Vega. I'm a fiber artist and also a multimedia. Part of my practice is like photography, fiber, video, many things at the same time, working with recycled materials. Born in Miami and raised in Venezuela.
Lisu, thank you so much for having me over. I have to congratulate you. You are part of this year's Culture Consortium, and you just won an LE too. So it's been a busy time for you. How does it feel?
Oh man, like it's feeling like really great, especially because for the last 4 years I've been working in so many projects, in a larger scale, and I can see right now, starting to see all the results. In particular, the South Florida Cultural Consortium piece. Its work was for like a year producer, all the entire piece, collect the material, ground the, put in the back jar, and it's like get the oxidation. It's amazing, how everything coming out.
I love that piece so much. I was absolutely in awe of the installation. And something with your pieces is they're so complex, but they look almost effortless and you just want to drown in them. How hard was that piece?
What's happening with all my practice, it is like sometimes I have to work with 3 or 4 projects at the same time because the practice, my different bodies of work is main with most of the recycled materials. And when we don't have enough material, I have to continue with another one. So that piece from the consortium, starting from the solo show I created at the Pembroke Pine. So everything is connected. Last year at the Pembroke Pines, I have the opportunity to show an exhibition called That Which Inhabit Me, inspired about my ancestral connection, and try to come back to my roots, like with the experimental engraving and, like drawing, like create like drawing ephemeral, on the wall, connecting with metal pieces and oxidator, get the raws of the material and, like get all the pigments and the rope. And all those 2 projects was coming together, so during the practice it's kind of hard, like for me, because I didn't create any sketch. I just follow, like roots, like for me to weaving as the time is not exist, like when I just kept the rope, as I can work in day and night, and only my feelings, like tell me, okay, this is like the time to stop, or when I don't have any more material, it's the time to stop. But most of the time it's like all the projects like coming together.
So how did you first connect with weaving? Like, what was the connection that you knew that you wanted to pursue this as a medium?
This is like a magic moment happened in my life. Original, the fiber was everything in my career, during my career, in many different ways as possible. Original because my grandmother, she was like a seamstress, so I always connected, like in the early age, to cutting fabrics, create from all the remains of the parents, what the remains of rope, or fabrics or threads, like was in the floor. I grab everything and I made the clothes from my little dolls. So I learned a lot from my grandmother, like to also, like in the designer side, to make patterns and make my own clothes, like in Venezuela at the really early age. But and then when I was, like in the like graduated, I was graduated in experimental engraving, and that's how the metal and the oxidation coming out. And then after that, when I moved to Miami, I want to explore it, like some part, like create my own prints, my own fabrics. And then that's how another way coming. But especially with the row, happened something really interesting. I just in 2015, when my last baby Fausto came born, I was, like experimenting. He came early, and I just like he have to be in the NICU for like almost 11 days. And during that time, I feel like really depressive because he born early at this expecting time. And after get him in the home, I was to have like a really a nightmare, like which my right hand touched my left hand so hard, and I couldn't breathe. So I say, okay, that's happening constantly, and I say I want to take advantage of that feel and try to create something. And that's how the role coming also, like the way how can, for example, like during that time, I didn't recognize myself. I take a look in the mirror and I don't know, I was not the same person. My face changed, my body changed, my feeling changed. I don't feel identified with the Lisu, like for 2 months ago,
And that's postpartum.
Yeah, but I didn't feel it was like a huge depression. I feeling, like this is a challenge I need to assume and take advantage of that situation, I'm just trying to get in better. So during that moment when people try to tell me something and just like regret, like always, like feeling was not right. So I say, let me start working with something I feel attached to myself. And that's how the role coming out. And that moment, the role coming out, like I try to create, like accessories, like to put in the body. But and then, like can be like a sculpture pieces, hanging on the wall. And then I realized in one moment when I was cutting, like the white part came out, and I feel the colorful part was the body, and the inside part of the roll was the soul. And then, like I because I didn't waste any material, I'm start putting, in a box. And one day, 2 or 3 years later, play with my little one, with Fausto, which Fausto and Julian, they are my big mentors. I was, put the rope on the floor, and then my hands danced so fast. I was so fascinated, I couldn't stop. And then I realized at that moment I was connected with something, which and I didn't know what's happening, but I was weaving, but I never take any workshop relay with that. And then immediately I called my grandmother. My grandmother told me, of course, your great grandfather was a weaver. I used to make hammock with my mother, I know that. I feeling was something additional, some ancestral connection, happened in that. After that, after the 2017, what was completely create pieces, like with my main material, which is a rope. But and then also, I expanding the row with a photography, and then the main row just the Waayu oxidator, and I implement materials, extra material, or I can create in collaboration projects with another artist, which is called Carlos Pedrañez from Brazil, and we made like video art installation with fiber, it's a lot of things going on right now.
Is this your grandmother?
Yeah, it's just my grandmother. Yeah.
Was this part of a piece?
No, actually, the reason for she's always with me, she's probably she's some of my love of my life. She passed away from COVID in the 2021, and during that time, I feeling so grateful to meet her before 2 months before she passed away, and we had like incredible time. This is some of the last photos I did, like for her, and during that moment, I remember when I take that photo. And just she asked me, why you take me so many photos? And I said, because I want to make a fabric and I want to make a beautiful clothes for you. And she laughed and she said, you are crazy, and then after she passed away, I tried to connect myself again. It was like a deep black hole. And I'm just like every single part of my body was completely disconnected. And I tried, like to restart again and connect all my feelings again. And during that process, a lot of memories from the past coming out. And that was the beautiful and sad journey we're experimenting right now. Like it is many things. I know she's my angel. She always speak with me, like help me. She tried to make everything the impossible possible, and she's in every single corner of my life. Like I have like mini sculpture of her, the photos, like her with me. This is for the first time she wears some of my wearable pieces. I made the dress for some of my collection, and then that's the necklace. And this is some of the last photos I did it, and for some, everything was so magic at the moment. I think it was something she's probably soon. The end will be soon, but I deny because before she left, she told me I give 10 years of life, and we say we want to travel to the end of our life. But unfortunately, she left 2 months after. and I try to reconnect myself. So she's always be with me around.
I love that. This was beautiful. Can you talk a little bit about your Waayu roots?
My great grandfather from my mom's side, there was like a weaver. They made tapestries, and that is the only connection where I have it. And then during the watch that wishing having me, the project inspired about my feelings. Like that project is coming was Pembroke Pine last year, and I dedicated time to writing because I try to find many different ways to weaving, not only with the fiber, but also with the photography, also with the sign language, also with braille. And then I create just get my DNA, and it's like 39% of my DNA is like indigenous. But just because my grandfather, Foncho, moved to El Mojan, to Cabimas, he never get like close contact with his family because he moved, like from another town. And I don't know this part. I don't have so much information during that time. Just I realized I have the connection after did my DNA and then investigate about my heritage, and that's the Waayu coming out. And then during that time when I created the poem, I was starting a really close friend of mine, like asking about she can give me a contact, like with a teacher, which is she's a Waayu too, and she can probably translate that poem, in Wayunaki, which is the original language. And then it was really hard to get it because like they are really close, like, and what is your intention to do that? I have to explain it, like how I feel, and I had to explain it, from what is my great grandfather, where he used to live, like why was my father, my grandfather lost the communication and all that, and then she told me, okay, let's try to something, but I want to get the poem like voice. I can't translate because it's not the same way exactly in Spanish. So at that moment, it's coming something really magic because I also I already know from read many books about the Waayu. It is, like when the indigenous, the Waayu, like weaver, the women feel like a spider, so they make connection. And for some reason, when I connect with the material, I always call I'm the little spider. It is like I'm connected and connected and connected. And also in the indigenous, my indigenous side, they're working a lot with the dreams. And part of my practice, is working on the dreams. So like, I'm talking to you right now and I had chills because, like I'm feeling, it's something, like with something happening, it's like, it's some energy around during that process. It's not on my control. I feeling, like I'm just like, it's a line could connect me with somebody, like to guide me, like to something, which sometimes I don't know, like this is when I'm just get the rope, I can weave in for many hours and I don't feel the time, So I think in that moment is where the spider activator and when that's my ancestral, like activator. Part of the process right now for me is investigate more, and try to see if I still have family, like there, and then see, how I can help because I really, in the future, maybe it can be opportunity for me to come back and see, like where my roots come from.
I recently saw Intertwined. It's an exhibition with you and Juan Henriquez, your husband. I love that collaboration so much. And this exhibition was beautiful because it shows both your mediums together. I absolutely love it. And one of your pieces, there was a photo of a hand. And I know you incorporate photography into your work. How do you determine what images to use?
It's something like really fluid and organic, like during how the photography came. It just because, like the photography came in the fiber. It's because I want to explore in the fiber like more like a painting side. So it's like I'm not a photographer, but I'm a huge fan, like to take photos, and capture many different moments. So during all my practice, like since probably 1999 and the early 2000, I have a lot of records, like photos on papers, and I just keep it with me. And then, I have my camera and I have my iPhone, and I just take photos many different places, and if I really love the moment, like with my kids or something really special, I don't want to forget that. So I just like recording video, and that's those sound, like include, like in my exhibitions, in my projects. But what's happening, it is after my grandmother passed away, I feel like many moments, many memories, like coming in and out. And I just say, I want to try to recreate, exploring the fiber more in like the painting side, create, like a large fiber, like made with all the remains. Let me show you so we can see better. It is, like this is some photos I did, like in Portugal. So it's like what I'm doing, it is like using the same material, the rope, but I shred it. I disconnect one trim at the same time. And the idea was to create like a fingerprint, like a layer. And after that, I transfer the photography and I fragment that moment. Exactly how the dream coming out. Like when you're dreaming, you can jump to one place and another one. And after that, and just start remember, like my early age. And probably because I had the perimenopause right now, the old image and the old memories are more clear right now.
Same.
So I do not remember what happened yesterday, but I can remember when I was 8 years old. No. Exactly. Super clear, like if I touch some material, maybe remind me something. Maybe if I smell something, remind me some moment in the past. It's something like magic,
or
like
burst into tears out of nowhere.
Yeah. Exactly, like something like this. So and so I was, some of my large big project was a momentary hall, and I created, like C. Lopez and Sophie Bonnet was a curator from my second show at the Frank Gallery before my solo, and there is a fragment of photos from my childhood, like so I collected, and then like this is every single paper I'm using right now in the fiber. Like try to create this process is exactly, I use, like transfer the rope in the fabric. This is my first trip with my other grandmother to Los Aleros in Mérida. And my other grandmother, she was magic, like she have like a Chevy little white car, XTU 034. Yeah. And when that's the tag number. And she's just crazy, like she's like always get the family together, and try to create unforgettable moment. So at this time, like I was in a town, in the small town in Cabimas, and she said, okay, let's travel. Let's gonna go to Mérida. And, like ask my parents, like for me to go. And that is my first trip with her, like being a horse. And then, like what happened here, it is when I transfer the image, you can see the rope, already on the paper. But and then, like this is a calendar, like from some specific time of my life, like production calendar. And then I have, like some of my the photos, like when I was little, I was the first one from my dad's side, and then
look at those eyes,
and the first one from my mom. So it's like all these I try to reuse, like I create like really large project, like inspired about my memories, about Juan, some moments with Juan's, like, and I take photos again and I reuse it to create, like different projects. So imagine for the last, I don't know, probably the last 4 or 5 years, like working with this, I have that with me. The other day I had the chance, like that was in my studio. So right now I need to put it in a place, but over here it is some parts, in the other stores is another one. I separate everything by time in order to create, like a large mural, like with all those memories together, and then take the photo and create a new work, like, and that's how working, that is like some of the most important part in my process. It's like one project connect me to another one, and another project connect me to another one. It's like a life cycle, like never finish. And then that's how this is coming out.
So we're currently in your home. This is your home studio, because you split your time between home and laundromat.
Yes.
What's the pros and cons about that?
Because right now I'm working in some projects in a large scale. I don't have enough space for a production. I have my sewing machine, my overlock machine, the heat press, and I need, like for me, Also, I love the side, like to be a mother, and I really want to integrate my kids, in the entire process also. And they really love it. We are like a partner, like we're working together, And for me, I feel more comfortable sometimes in the creation process. Because this is like it's more like incubator place, to working. I can wake up in the middle of the night and I had the idea and come back to the studio, and working until 5 o'clock in the morning, or maybe, like I wake up really early in the morning and I had the idea, go straight to my sewing machine, grab the table, like take off the rope, shred it. Sometimes, I have like a racks here. So I had to shred it, trim by trims the rope, and then put on the table, get the iron machine, sew in here, like get the photo ready, transfer here. It is, like that's how I'm working. And then when I have like some amount, like where I already, like to assemblage, I'm going to laundromat. And I use, like that space to take a brief, and just the material and me, and I hang it on the wall, and then I take the time to see what direction I can take it, like it's another, like my space, my studio is divided in two parts, like this is like the first process, and the second process is in laundromat, and then sometimes come back to here to include more and more and more.
So you see a different aspect based on the location too.
Yes, completely.
It's almost like stepping back from an art piece and like walking away from it and then revisiting.
Yeah, because sometimes just you see, like this is like a garage space. I don't have walls, like to hanging. And
but I love this.
Yeah, like I want to. It is like a lot of people, they always ask, how you can do that? Like this is like it's crazy because if you see, you can see, the tape. That is like the frame to make some of the large tapestry pieces I did, like in Miami-Dade College last February. And then, like everybody asking, where are those pieces? Well, those pieces are here, how you can make it, like how you can get all the raw pieces, like shredded. Well, I have the racks here. I have to open here to start, like to connecting. And then, like everything it is, when I'm working, I open, working, and then I'm finished folding again and open a new project, like, so that's how working, like everything.
Well, so you created this table?
Well, yeah, I ordered that table because this is original like cutting table for a production,
right.
Like to make my clothes.
It does. It looks like it's like in a factory, in a clothing factory.
It is. So I was, like really wants to get a big table in order, like to use the iron machine to transfer the rope, But I kind of like the idea to have this one as a storage. So if you see that, those are my kids too. They always are with me in the studio.
The cabbage patch.
The cabbage patch. That was
an E.T.
An E.T. Like they are always with me, protect also the space. And then just because also I create like some pieces, like wearable pieces, I have, like my little tools, like for work here. And then probably this is like can be a little mess, but I know exactly what is every single thing. I always recommend like nobody touch it because I know where is every single.
You know where you put your things.
Exactly. What is every single thing.
Nobody can touch them.
Exactly.
You have your thread.
Yeah, I had threads with many different colors, and then in this side I have the special thread for the rope. I try to separate because it has the small one that are more thicker.
And you use all three sewing machines?
No, I only have, honestly, I only have those two, the regular and the overlock machine. That's the two one. But I don't have any space, like to put the other ones. That's my little heat press machine where I can make like the small samples.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have the large one, like there.
Yes. Can you tell me about this?
Yeah, this one is it's I think 36 by 40 something. And that is what I create the small pieces there, like those size. Everything, all this was printed, like in that machine. So it is like a sublimation heat press machine, which I use, depends on the material, can be 375 or 400 Fahrenheit for less than 1 minute is probably the maximum. So it is amazing because I already have here. So sometimes when I have the move for working for many hours, I can use the day, like to transfer. And then from the NDC, the Miami-Dade College, the large tapestry, I have to print it in another place.
So sometimes you have to outsource.
Yeah. For the large scale, yes, I have to do it. The Miami-Dade College, like the tapestries are combined with many different layers, and I had to create the raw pieces on the center and then transfer the image. And see, if you want me, I can open.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let's see, which one is this one, maybe.
Are you reading this, La Poeta?
Estaba. I'm starting to, and then was in some place and I find it today. So I want to continue in the airplane when I get to New York. So this is some of the pieces. This is like a large project, like a 20 tapestries. Right now I construct 10, and from my next presentation, I'm planning to do the other 10, and then like in the next year, because there's a lot of things going on, especially like with the photographic fiber project. I have to select the material. I'm planning to connect many photos at the same time. But the way how exploring, I don't like to say collage because I weaving also in the image. Another way, like to use the weaving side. And then if you see here, we have a space from Miami, Maryland, some parts of Washington, Chicago.
All interconnected.
All interconnected.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I just like get front and back the print, but to transfer this, I have to create first all the layers in a fiber. And I kind of like the idea of the fiber is like how the memory coming out, like sometimes it's not 100% clear, it's like fade out.
Yes.
And that's how the effect I really wants to get with the fiber, with the raw fiber, because I know with the organza, I can get the full image, And that is like the tapestry has like a front and back. And nothing. I'm planning connecting, like this is a project like and maybe 15 years of photos, because like those are the photos, when I travel, I like to take and capture those moments, and then I can jump to another one, like it's not one photo, can be like 3 or 4 different photos from different places connecting, and then I create digital the image and then I transfer. So that's how this is coming.
How do you encounter challenges along the way?
No, I didn't feel like that have any obstacle. This is like what happened here. It is, I love to keep the way some things happen for some reason.
Yeah.
Because this is, I create my own technique. Like I'm exploring. I feel like so grateful to have, like the heat press machine, because I can get like different materials and experiment, how every single material reactive. Just remember, like the sublimation process is like to printer fabric for garments, and just like for me, sometimes, like some things can be a mistake, but maybe it can be a new beginning of some process in another timeline of my project.
You welcome it.
Yeah, I know. I never, like something's happening for some reason, And for example, this one, when you're hanging, it is, you can see like some abstract, like in the image, but when you take a photo, the image is coming out completely clear, And I love that effect, and it is as if I feel it, maybe it's not the right way, I don't have any problem. I'm just put in another place, waiting for the right moment. And maybe, like in 1, 2, or 3 years later, I see it again and I say, oh my God, this is so fun. I connected with another piece, So I didn't waste any material.
Nothing's ever discarded.
Yeah, never. It is like it's a challenge, it's a challenge to experiment the scale. It's a challenge, like to working with many different materials, how you can, when I get, like when I have my dreams and everything, and I say, how I can grab the idea, may touch it, like feel it. And that is the challenge, how you can create that. Because, like everything what you see, it is like a really personal project. It's inspired about my emotions, about my life. The people are so important with me, how I connect, like the different moments, how are important, how my two grandmother was so important in my life, how I connected with my ancestors, like from the weaving side. And then that's what a lot of things right now make so much sense, like because some point of your life you wanna discover, you try to find to see why I'm acting like that, why I feel like so much connection with something, like why I feel identified with this. And then you start investigating, and that's how everything coming, like for example, like the Frank Gallery show that wishing having me, that's so important for me because it's almost 2 years of work, like to exploring, and 2 years full. But the year before, I was investigating about why I'm doing this. Like I always I got my question. Like I didn't went to the studio to do like a fashion designer, but I can sewing, I can cutting. Like probably because I have my grandmother with me, teach me, but in like a really beautiful way. Like she teach me the love to create. Like to feel embrace and many different things. I don't feel like something like institutional. I learn. That's why, like for example, I make patterns, but I don't like to make patterns. When I'm working in some wearable pieces, I have like 3 or 4 mannequins and I'm molding, and just like those little extra fabric I connected, and then another one. Ask me if I can make a pattern. No, it's a one of a kind piece. I consider, like those fashion art pieces another extension of my practice. And that's also what happened with the fiber installation. Like you ask me, what you have in mind? I can have something in mind, but I also am going more with the flow and see how this material can connect me to another one. And it's our life, like life is about connection. You all the time weaving something. You connect with people, like you connect with energies, like you collect moments, and try to make everything. When you're writing, you every phrase, every word connect, and when you got a paragraph, it's already a weaving, another way, like to weaving. And then how that's everything, like coming out in my projects.
Do you enjoy making wearable pieces?
I love it, but the way how I enjoy it is like when I feel so much stress, that's what I'm using, like
the distraction.
That's my distraction, like this is like my meditation time, like the raw pieces when I construct, it's like my meditation time because I feel my emotions can connect directly to my hands, and I can sew. I love to hand sewing, and that's I really passionate with that. I can, like stay all day using my hands, like I think that's so important for me. And when I feel stressed or whatever, that's my healing side, like to do that. But I love to create the larger scale, especially, like the installation, like most of the times I have to get all the pieces separated and I'm assembled in the space. And that's how the consortium piece, like came out, like that was a beautiful challenge for me because the main idea was to create like vertical. It's in my first from that type of body, was the first time to create like vertical piece.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how coming out, I can connect it one trim to another one and then weaving one side. It's so cool, like the light, how it can project those shadows,
Those beautiful shadows
of the different tones. So it's not like a one full black and it's not like a one full white. It is a variation of those tones, the color.
Do you ever consider how the piece ages over time?
This is another thing. I never feeling with the piece is done. Like maybe that piece can be finished for some project, but I'm pretty sure in my timeline I can connect it with something else. So it's like I always consider my pieces are in like always in a working process.
Really?
Yeah. I can present, like in many different ways. That's why I really love the installation because I can disconnect all the pieces and I can assemble in another place completely different from the original site. And I'm just, because I learn every day something new, I can connect with another type of work, and then I make a new piece, and everything all the time, like can be look different.
Is there a new process that you want to experiment with?
Two exciting projects, like coming in the next couple months, like I have like a solo exhibition with Gladwell Project in New York, and I want to create some side projects on May. And I'm really excited because I was working already in that piece. It's also like a fiber oxidation, like some pieces connected with metal pieces and a rope. But in the residency with the project, I have like a conversation with Guadalupe, which is just beautiful person, like I got the opportunity to do the residency. And then I say, but you know what, like we had agreement, like with my husband, it's like, we're not ready to take the time alone, the residency. So she say, okay, but he can come. Let me, like I can have a meeting with him and see his interest. And of course, was interest. And then, like she offered to us, let's try to do like a residency project, like a family residency. And it came in something beautiful because we're planning this for so many years, like to do like a family residency. So it's like Juan is want to work, like a new body of work. And then I'm specialized right now to exploring like the mural, but I just experiment like the photographic clay. So we'll be out of the town for 5 weeks in the project in Mexico. And then I want to try to see if I can explore it, because I did, like in the past, like some tests with clay and using clay with fabric and transfer. And it's working well, but still the image is to fade out. So I want to see if I can make some workshop in order to increase a new project, in my career.
Your partner is also an artist.
Incredible artist.
And I'm going to ask him the same question because obviously I'm going to tour his studio. How is it having a life partner who's also an artist? Does that make your process easier or harder, or do you feed from each other? Do you inspire each other?
It's so magic the way how we handle, like everything. Because first we met when we was like 17 years old. We
I
married,
heard you're high school sweethearts.
Yeah, it is. So we are like almost 27 years together. And during that timeline, we learn, like, and respect the work. He respect my work and I respect his work. And sometimes, like it is, he always support me. Like sometimes it's like I feel it. You thinking I'm ready to do that? Yeah, he always say, yes, let's do it, And it happened the same. It's a back also, in that side, like I'm really fan and big supporting of his career. And we enjoy every single moment, like we enjoy, and we are really grateful what every single things, like happening. But we also respect our boundaries, like it is, I know when it's time for him to work, this is the time, like for us to be apart and let him, like to create his process. Of course, like we're working at different times. Most of the time, like if I have to go to laundromat, I'm just working in the morning. He's working in the nighttime when nobody's there. And then he's more in a quiet zone. In my particular practice, I'm really loud. We put some music. My little one, he's my DJ. Like Julian, he's my older one. He can help me to take off the rope. And we're working together, all three. For Juan, he really wants to get alone, contemplate the material, and try to take, like time. In my case, like I really want to enjoy with my kids. So what happened there is like we always separate, like we say in Spanish, no mezclamos la milanta con la magnesia.
Sí.
So it is, like he knows, we're here to support, and that's what I feel like, like back from my kids and my husband. So it is like in the end of the day, it's a family project, like before everything happening, like before the pandemic, we used to take a little breaks and working together and make projects together, and our kids are really involved, like with our practice. And for that way, I think it's made everything more easy for me, like to work, because I don't have limitation. I have somebody to love me, to support my work, to make my dream possible. Like I don't have nobody judge me. Like he is the type of guy to say, let's do it. I'm here, like for you. And I'm pretty sure he feels the same way for me. You will ask him, like, and let's see what I say. But in my case, like I feel really grateful, like the way how we construct our family. Like we respect the career of every single, and then we also create every single day is like a new journey, and it's so amazing when I come to the studio and I see the night piece and I go, hey, listen, I love this. How you made that, like, but in the same time, we don't realize our works are completely related. But after get the residency, after get, like some shows, I can see the fiber in his painting and I see the painting in my fibers,
Right.
like, but it was not something intentional because we never, it's so rare for us, like to working in the same space. But in the exhibition where we have it right now, the way how we work it is he painting first and I made the intervention later. And then I create some weaving pieces, some fiber pieces, and then he painting. And then we made like different exercise. But it doesn't happen at the same time. I left the piece there and he worked, and he left the piece in my space and I worked too. And then later we see how the results,
It's very, very unique. You like music when you're working? What kind of music do you listen to?
No, it is, like the little one, he's amazing DJ. He had like many different albums in Spotify. So they put music, but in particular, I'm just like really can be like a Tom Waits, or maybe, like can be Massive Attack, or maybe can be Bad Bunny, or maybe can be, like Roberto Carlos, or Juan Gabriel, or Natalia Lafourcade, like it is what else, like Rafaela Carrà, and then we singing, or ABBA, like Queen. It's not something like specific, like music. It's something, like to capture that moment with my kids, like when I use the music when Fausto is here, and then we can stop a little, take a little break and dance and come back again, like, and then Fausto can painting and change the music, Julian put another music. And I learned so much with those kids, like, because they have really good musical taste. And that's, it's a lot of.
Is that your biggest inspiration? You would say that?
Yeah. Like it's incredible. For me, it's like one of the most beautiful experiences, like to be a mother. Like I feel it. Whatever hard situation I got in the past, I can healing. Like with my kids, they are so clear, a beautiful soul, and they teach me every day. Like something new, and I feel a piece of my grandmother up still in Julian and Fausto. So they are the way how they look me and how we work, like it is, I discovered something new, like it is with my kids, like this is, they are so important, like for me. Julian is going right now to the university, and just like, I feel like I don't have one hand already, like, and I try to, it's also a beautiful part too, because I have to learn again to stay away from some of my child, like, because I create my full environment, like my all fours together. And right now we be 3 for 4 years, because one can be in and out. And then that's life, and we have to enjoy every single moment. And nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, But the most important part for me is learn with my kids one day at a time, and enjoy the simple moments where it's gonna make huge memories,
So what's next?
Next is like continue, like enjoy with my family, like I'm planning to go to New York for 2 shows. One is a conductor fair, and the other one is a material matters with a Gladwell project. I have, like the incredible, I feel like, I don't know, Millie, it's like something, I know it's not something where you ask me about what is next, but I feel so grateful to have so many families, friends are right now my family to help me, for me to grow. Because this is not something I create by my own. It's a lot of friends like believe on my work and made the impossible possible, and that's how happening for me to working right now with Gladwell Project. It is a friend of mine, Caroline, recommend me, like with her, with Christiana, and then we're getting so in love and we're working together in many projects. This is like the way, another different way to weaving. Like Dani, she would be with me. She's probably my sister, and those friends, like they are connecting me, and I feel like grateful to have incredible curators, like Sophia, Sophie, Rina, like all that, like Coralie, like they are part of my router right now. They help me and support me. And everything I have right now, I have it just because I have my friends and family support my work. And then my next is like show the pieces in New York, go to a new solo in New York, my first solo in New York, in a 10,000 square foot, like a warehouse. Still scary because I don't know, how that can be, but I want to take the challenge to exploring that. And I know something beautiful is going to come in now. And then I had the residency in Mexico with the project. And then I'm coming back with Taimi Alvarez, like we have like a short film and the Madar in July. And then I have the show curated from Sofia Ballesteros and in Mindy. So that is my next, like I have completely booked between now to July. And then let's see what's happening the end of the year,
Something that I love in all my artist interviews, artists mention other artists. Mm-hmm. I love that you mentioned curators. How important are the curators to you?
I have like a beautiful experience, like this is like probably sometimes can be harder for everybody to say, this girl is like every beautiful, like, and everything is perfect. And it's not, but it is we are from the same frequency. And when you are in the same frequency, you catch people, has your same feelings, And then I have the opportunity to work with incredible curators to make my work, respect my work, and give me the opportunity to work and believe in that, and maybe in the beginning, because sometimes, like you see, it's a lot of things, like going on. It's a hard, but they give me a time to breathe, and then after that, what's happening is that curator right now, she's my friend, and I feel part of my family. So we keep the contact. We still call, how are you, how you feeling, we make new connections. And I think it's a hard, like to say only those names, because it's like so many people, right now in my life to supporting. The other day, like I was sometimes a little cheesy because, like I cry, I feel like very emotional, how people believe in me, how I feeling, like grateful to have a friend like demonstrate love, like, because this is like another thing. We need to celebrate of every single person, like this is and enjoy when somebody, like win something, and enjoy, and I'm fascinated, like all the work with many different people, like Carrie, Regina, like Jennifer Basil, like Jennifer Prince, like Jane Clay, like also Julia Zorilla, Rosana Barba, like this is all my friends, like Denise, like this is like these people, like we are like a community and we support each other. And that's what makes everything different, like it is. I know curators and artists can have like a huge ego, but that is not part of my router. Like I'm running by a different frequency. And when I have the opportunity to work with the curator, is if I learn and I listen. And this and that's the way, like how I feeling back, I never got any problem with a curator or artist or whatever, because I respect and we have the boundaries, And it's like, for me, I don't have filter, really. I don't have time to filter, like I know where I'm from, like the hot water is already invented. We say in Spanish, la agüita caliente ya se inventó. And just enjoy, and try to feel celebrated about where I'm from. Like I'm coming from a small town, part in Maracaibo, get my memories in Cabimas, celebrate my ancestors, and, like learn my kids how you can pursue your dreams. Like sometimes the dreams can be impossible, but if you're working hard, you make everything possible. So, and if you celebrate the people that are around you, like everything is going to be bigger, like thinking in the full pictures. To be you at that point has a lot of people around you support you and believe in you. And I'm feeling grateful, you know.
What's your advice to a young artist, to someone starting out?
Believe in yourself. You know, like I know sounds like a cheesy, but sometimes, you know, like the artists need to, you know, like believe, and this is what I wanted, and realize you can jump to here to here. No, it's impossible. It is, you have to connect every single things, can be smaller, but if you connected the big chains, if you're planning, make this example. I want to change the world. You are too small to change the world. But if you are at the same frequency with another person and you connected and send the right message, in some points, you want to change your router. And at one point, that router want to connect it with another router, and we make a big change, you know? So in the artistic side, it is breathe, believe, and take the chance to contemplate. I see. Sometimes we need to change things in order, you know, like to restart, you know? And the mistake, it's not a mistake. It's a time for learn. And that's, you know, in that way, you feel less frustrated, you know, and you pursue your dreams. And then those dreams can be possible.
Lisu, thank you so much for welcoming me into your home. What a beautiful interview. Thank you. I'm going to leave Lisu's information down in the description and her upcoming exhibitions. And if you want to contact Lisu, want to learn more about her, please follow her. Thank you so much.
And thank you.